Welcome back to the Slide Job Podcast. I'm your host, Colton Smith, or Left Turn Central. I am here joined by my co host, Brandon Bull Davis. No Josh this week. He is celebrating a certain holiday, which is essentially Christmas to him, St. Patty's Day. So he made the probably somewhat smart decision to not try and make it onto the podcast. Although, like Bull said in the group chat, that would have been very entertaining. But just me and Bull today, and we're excited because we have a very, very exciting race. A very wild is probably the best way to put it. A gamble of a race, you could say, at Las Vegas. We had a return of an old NASCAR powerhouse to the front of the field. We also have some Hamlin rumors to talk about with our power rankings, which me and Bull both admitted before the show. Kind of had trouble getting those out. We will also be overreacting to some stuff. I am pretty interested to see thoughts on my overreaction. So without further ado, Bull, you ready to get started?
Let's do it. I'm excited to hear the overreaction. You were kind of teasing it up. I'm
Yeah.
excited.
I think it's one that I always kind of had in the back of my mind that this could happen, and kind of that race set it in motion. So that may have given away too much. But let's go ahead and get into this race recap. It all started in stage one with Michael McDowell on the pole. We all kind of knew, like, Spire just has this thing where they're really putting everything in the qualifying, and then the rest of it doesn't really come to fruition in the race. I mean, Hocevar always seems to have a fast car regardless and can keep that car up there, but McDowell is always on the front row, and then he ended up like 15th by the first caution or stage break or something like that. So one thing I will note with that on Spire is that Justin Haley finished 14th. He's just sneakily knocking off these top 15s, not being the flashy guy at Spire. And I'm curious what they're building there with Rodney Childers. Anyways, stage one, I would say it went fairly chalk. Austin Cindric did end up getting the stage win. We had a decently late stage caution that kind of flipped the field around. Cindric definitely had a fast car. Just one of those when he got in traffic, he wasn't able to maneuver it. Bowman and Elliott actually also finished second and third in this one. I kind of thought they were going to be the two Hendrick cars at the front, but they both had own incidents that got in the way. Bowman had to literally pull off the track to not have a tire fall off. I don't know if you heard about that, but that was at stage two when he was, stage two after he was challenging Cindric for that lead. And Bubba Wallace also finished fourth in that stage. Just somebody to mention. I know you were excited about it. He had a very bad fast car.
He had a rocket ship at the early runs. He kind of fell off on the long runs, but short run speed, he had a rocket ship yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you saw that in stage two when he finished fourth as well. Larson got the win in that stage. Byron finished second. Funny enough, the 200 cars that were in the top five of the last stage were not even in the top 10 of this stage. But Hocevar ended up fifth. And Ryan Blaney is somebody that we need to talk about because he had a rocket ship himself, one that in a day where everybody seemed like they could not really cut through traffic very well. The qualifying times, first place to 23rd, there was about 0.2 of a second difference. So he wrecked in qualifying and started at the rear, worked his way all the way back up to 13th, and then had, I believe it was just a pit road issue, or was it a penalty? Do you know?
It was a pit road issue. He was struggling with the car. They made some adjustments. But when he got his chance, he was bad fast. He definitely looked good until stage three.
Yeah, stage three, which I missed because I was watching the selection show. It's like the one thing that could really get me to look away from NASCAR for a little bit, and I was very confused when I came back. So, Bull, try to fit the puzzle together, put the puzzle together. What the hell happened in stage three?
So, I kind of use this as a reference. If you were playing DraftKings on NASCAR, everything was going way too well in stage two. Who you thought was going to be up front was up front. Who you thought was going to be fast was fast. Everything was going perfect. I was ready to hit the cash out button. And then we get to stage 3, and chaos happened. It turned into a fuel strategy race. I think the big stuff started. It was probably in the lap 68-ish, 70 range. Um, there was a caution, got some uh, everybody pit, and then so there was right on the edge of whether they can make it to the end. A couple guys decided, Hamlin and Reddick, that they were going to split it in half and pit at lap 35. And then a bunch of other guys decided they were going to try to stretch it. That's what Larson was doing in particularly. So he slowed his lap times down, and so he fell back a little bit. And then so Hamlin and Reddick pit. They ended up getting trapped a lap down. Reddick had trouble on pit road during his stop. They could not get the right rear tire off. They tried 3 or 4 times and it would not come off. So they just filled up fuel, changed the other 3, and sent him out. So they're stuck a lap down. You get down to I can't remember when the caution happened with Gregson. I can't remember what lap that was. But everybody else pit.
Was it the
And
last caution?
It was.
I think that was around lap 15 because I went back to what the last restart. So I think it was lap 20 or 15.
So then that's when everybody else pit and got gas, and Logano was going to win the race. It was his race to win at that point until he choked it away on pit road, slid through his box, had to back up, had a very slow stop, which set up Josh Berry, Suarez, Byron, and Ross Chastain to battle it out for the lead. And Berry and Suarez, they had it that the last 15, or the first 5 of the last 15. They were battling. It was hard racing. I really wanted to see Ross send it. I was kind of hoping he was going to send it, but with Suarez being up there, I think he played a little too nice. So all that set up for Josh Berry take the lead with about 10 laps to go, and he pulled away from that point on and ended up getting the victory for Wood Brothers.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, with the thing that isn't really reflected here is that Byron was right up there with those leaders too, there for a little bit on that last restart, and I was thinking, oh, here comes Byron, he's going to take it, and really these guys pulled away without any extra help. I think Byron may have gotten like a little loose or something trying to make a pass, but
Byron and Ross ended up rubbing fenders a little bit.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Battling each other and slowed them down, which allowed Berry to pull away even further. If Ross or Byron would have got clear of each other, one of those was winning the race.
Yeah. But I mean, nevertheless, still an awesome drive from Berry, who was around the top 10 all day, finished top 10 in stage 2. And it's really kind of stamping this return, I guess we could say, of Wood Brothers Racing, where they're not quite to their winning days of the past, but they just won a race finally. And that took a while. Harrison Burton got one last year, but it wasn't really off of Harrison Burton. We will talk about him a little bit later. But Daniel Suarez and Ryan Preece, how about that? I know Vegas has always been a decent track for Suarez, but Preece has been a guy who, outside of short tracks, hasn't showed much and ends up third here, is able to hold it off, and just a great start. Preece had a great Phoenix race, didn't get the finish, but he tried a different strategy, and it really worked out as a net positive. So his top 3 is nice.
I think it was either you or Josh last week was talking about Preece was going to win a race. And I know we were talking about the whole tire strategy and stuff last week, and Josh was getting a little confused on the softs and
yeah.
But I mean, that's 2 great finishes in a row for Preece.
Absolutely. And just his now 5th race with RFK. A lot of times you go to a new team and there's some growing pains that come with that, but not the case for Preece, and certainly not the case for Josh Berry, who is your winner this week. To round out that top 5, we mentioned William Byron and Ross Chastain finished there. Austin Cindric ended up with a 6th place finish. So is this maybe the year he finally puts it together and has a great season in that 2 car? Alex Bowman I mentioned him. He had the loose wheel, had worked his way back up, but also had an issue on pit road. If I'm not mistaken, it was a penalty out of his control. AJ Allmendinger, though, how about him? I mean, he was up top 10 all day long. I remember Kevin Harvick saying this is a track that kind of fits his style, and he's always been kind of good at. And so credit to him and Colleague Racing. I always thought Colleague was going to rise the ranks, and it's been a good start. They fell off at Coda, but how about the Dinger?
He looked great. I mean, I was kind of favoring him. I played him in DraftKings,
Mm-hmm.
so I was happy to see it. He was up front all day. He looked good. I was kind of surprised, but he did look good in practice. Um, and from this week, practice carried over to the race. Everybody who looked good in practice,
Yeah.
they looked good during the race.
Absolutely. And that's something we don't typically see very often, but maybe that's where we're headed as they get more and more comfortable with this next gen car. Rounding out the top 10 though, Kyle Larson, who led the most laps today, 61. There was a lot of comers and goers though. Cindric led 47, Chastain 14, Byron 10. And I think if we go down, Logano led 40. He's led a lot of laps this year. I think the most in the field, if not second most. But still yet to get a top 10. He was the big storyline was he's the first champion to not start off with, or at least one top 10 in the first 4 races. That now becomes 5. He still ended up in 15th. Not a terrible day. Christopher Bell, honestly, there's probably a reality where he ended up getting his 4th straight win. It just wasn't this race. He got up there and then had that interesting situation where he pit in Briscoe's pit box. Do you believe that should have been more than just an out of box pit, or you think it's fair game?
I, that Colton, that kind of sets up for my overreaction. Um,
Oh, okay.
I I don't like the call.
You
Um,
don't like that?
I don't like it. I mean, had a loose wheel and just pulled into the 19's pit box. Was able to fix it, and the only penalty he had was having to drop to the rear.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think I don't think Bell should have been penalized in that moment because I guess it's technically not illegal by the rules. But I think it should be something that NASCAR really likes to flip it by next week. That's not allowed anymore. And I think this is one of the cases that's perfectly fine and okay. Because I think it's also kind of a safety hazard in a way. It's just I don't know. It's silly. But if NASCAR's going to leave the door open for it, I can't really blame the 20 team and JGR for doing that. So but yeah, I agree. Should have been more than just a to the rear. And then some notable DNFs. Ryan Blaney, 73 laps down on the DNF, 35th on the field. Shane Van Gisbergen, boy, is he missing the road course, 34th out there. Kyle Busch, 33rd as well. You're cackling there. What do you want to say something?
Just going along with just proving my point even further. The dude can't run an oval to save his life.
Did you see the pre-race interview with Michael Waltrip where he like mentioned Backstreet Boys and somebody else that like he interviewed, I guess, and Shane was like, "Oh, I have no idea who that is." And then I think Waltrip said like an Australian band, and he's like, "I'm not from Australia," but so it's just like Mikey was like, all right, I'm gonna walk away now. But did you see that?
I did not actually.
Oh, I would look it up. It's a very funny little 30-second clip of Michael Waltrip being one of the greatest pit reporters of all time. But yeah, Kyle Busch on his home race. I know Josh was very much feeling that. 33rd, just incident after incident, and he got caught up in that wreck that Blaney got caught up in as well, right? Or
He did, and he also had a tire come off, if I remember correctly. He was one of them
yes, yes,
had that incident. Which there was actually a lot of those this week. I don't know
Mhm.
what the deal was, but there was 3 roughly that I remember. Tire coming off
Yeah.
and or loose wheels. I know we referenced Bowman. He
Hmm.
had to come back to pit road for a loose wheel. Bell having to
Yep.
pit, but he caught his and pit in the 19 box. Um,
Mhm.
Kyle Busch's came off. There was a bunch of tire issues this week.
Yeah, Yeah, a lot of issues on pit road, which is kind of a storyline they had hit early in the race. Is there anything else about this race recap that you would like to bring up
Yeah,
before we move along?
there's a couple drivers wanted to mention.
Mhm,
Their finish doesn't necessarily reflect how they did.
mhm.
Gragson finished 31st. He was up in the top 10, 15 all day. Had a
Yeah,
great run, and he's the one who brought out that last caution that set up the everybody being able to pit. But finishing 31st does not represent how his day went. He had a great run going. The same goes for Carson Hocevar, finishing 30th. He was up there just like you mentioned, had speed all day, ran in the top 10, 15. Was gonna have a great finish. And then Reddick finished in 24th.
mm,
He got him and Hamlin decided to pit with 35 laps left. Got trapped a lap down when nobody else pit. But he was up there running with Byron, Larson, uh, all day. Them were the fastest three cars all day, and
yeah,
finishing 24th doesn't reflect how good of a car he had.
yeah, exactly. And I'll go and wait to bring up the standings on Friday, but it was ugly. I had four of the top five drivers in the point standings, and did not what three of them didn't even finish in the top 20. At one point though, four of them were in the top 10. So it was very frustrating. But like you said, it was one of those where first two stages went chalk and then all hell broke loose in the third stage. I want to briefly before we get into flying the flag mention some news that broke. I think it was today. Yeah, about 4 hours ago. Well, actually, first it broke 16 hours ago that Progressive Insurance is in discussions to add a team to its advertising presence in NASCAR. This is by Adam Stern on Twitter. And Joe Gibbs Racing is kind of pegged as the favorite. Then, just recently, 4 hours later, it was added that Joe Gibbs Racing could be on the verge of filling the number 11 Toyota's open inventory through a deal with Progressive Insurance. I think what really it doesn't really shock me that they're finding a deal for Hamlin per se, but what it does say is that rumors about Hamlin, he's getting up there in age, retirement. I think it's pretty clear he's got a couple years left in him. But there's also rumors that, hey, will he just decide to go drive for his own team at some point? I feel like if Progressive is coming on, they want Hamlin in that 11, somebody who's consistently going to get him some good, advertising and whatnot, get their bang for their buck, get them on TV. So do you think this is a sign that Hamlin and the 11 will be around for still years to come?
I love the news. I love Hamlin. He's probably one of my favorite drivers. And between him and the whole 2311 crew, I
Mhm.
love the news. I think that if they do get that big sponsor, I think that'll definitely help out, keep him around. I think losing FedEx may have hurt more than they let on.
Yeah.
That was his longest sponsor, biggest sponsor as well. So I think keep getting another big sponsor to keep around would definitely help out and keep him around longer.
Yeah. That's the interesting part is what I could see and a very interesting Progressive commercial come out of it. But recently Progressive did, and I do now remember this. I forgot they did sponsor Ryan Newman for at least a year or two back when he was in the six. So pretty ironic considering he's the one that has been in some of the worst wrecks in our recent history. But thankfully he's okay from all of those. But let's go ahead and get to flying the flag. The first one we have here is Josh's 20 different winners prediction is very much alive. We currently have 3 different winners, 5 races into the season. What flag you giving this one?
This is a red flag all day. I didn't like the pick from the beginning. I think it's. I don't think we've. When was the last time we saw 20 different winners? There's
When was the last time we saw 16 different winners? I think just
it,
one of the years, the year
that
that
was.
Truex didn't make it or whatever.
I think that was the first year of this new car, and since
Mhm.
then we've not had. We had what 12 or 13 last year, if
Yeah.
I remember correctly. Yeah, this is a red flag. I don't know. Josh may have started St. Patrick's Day early when he had that tape.
Yeah, well, I feel like almost every day is St. Patrick's Day for Josh sometimes.
between St.
He's
between
not here to
St.
defend
Patrick's
himself.
Day
I feel
and
bad.
between St. Patrick's Day and March Madness, he's
Yeah, this is quite
he's
the
in for a
month for
long
him.
week.
And coming off a trip from Nashville of all times, he really knows how to plan a week for sure. But for me, I'll still throw the yellow out there. It seems like there's a lot of different players in the field. We saw Priest finish second. We saw Priest run well at Phoenix. We saw Suarez have a decent top 10 day at Phoenix and then finish third today. I know the strategy played into it and it was going chalk up until then, but I think Barry is definitely a player now as well. And Hocevar is hanging out. I think there's just a lot of different guys that they're not going to be there each and every week, but they could find themselves up at the front at the end of one of these races. And that's really all it takes. So I think it's still alive. But I still am not, shouting to the rooftops like Josh. But the second one here, I moved this around from the list I gave you. I'm going to save that one for last, the second one I gave you. But the next one is Harrison Burton is a bust who should never see the Cup Series again. What are your thoughts on that?
Green flag. He got one lucky win last year in the Daytona night race before the playoffs. Yeah, that's his first real contention of winning a race. And as you can see, as we spoke about it earlier, Josh Berry won the race. Um, he was in the same car Harrison Burton was last year. Last week, Berry finished top five as well. This week, got a win. Just shows if you put a competent driver in that equipment, what you can do.
Yeah. And it goes to show how easy it is to kind of forget how good a team is. I'm flying the green flag as well. I think there is a world where Harrison Burton could figure it out. He was certainly rushing in that 21 car. He was still figuring things out on the Xfinity side. So he was rushed. I'm not necessarily blaming him, but for now, I'm gonna fly that green flag. And it's worth noting that in just 5 races, Josh Berry already has the same amount of top 5 as Harrison Burton did in 3 years. I mean,
That just
sounds wrong, but I'm 100% just looked it up. I didn't see it anywhere else. I was just like, let me look at Josh Berry's start and let me look at Harrison Burton's career. And that's where we're at right now. Two, that's the number, by the way.
Put a competent driver in there and that equipment prepared by Penske, but that's a different topic for a different day.
Yeah.
Put a competent driver in there and you get results.
Funny how that works. But that brings us to our third. We actually have 4 this week. So our third one, Ty Gibbs is nearing the point of no return. Green, yellow, or red?
I'm a yellow, but I'm on the verge of throwing green. It's bad. He started out as we talked about last week. Started out the last 8 races. I think it was the last season, and the first 5 this year. And there's something going on. I don't know if it's in his head, what the deal is, but it's ugly. In that JGR equipment, he should not have an average finish of roughly 31st in 12 races, roughly. If he doesn't turn it on soon, it will be a green flag. But I'm going to say yellow.
I just refuse to believe that what we saw in Xfinity was purely just because, yes, he did have the best car in the field, but you don't just win, 8 races in a season, like by accident. There's plenty of guys who've had the fastest car in the field and not been able to do that. But I'm throwing the red only because what's Joe going to do? Fire him? He's not going to fire him. I guess he's probably going to be around for the next 20 years. Is there a world where he gets the Cole Custer treatment and maybe gets demoted? Like, hey, let's give you a year or 2 back in Xfinity, or do you think he's just stuck in the Cup Series?
I don't think Joe's going to demote him. That's going to look bad from that perspective. I mean, the talent's there. I think it might be something in his head, as you mentioned. Won all those races in Xfinity. So I think the talent's there. There's something going on that's not being talked about, but it's ugly right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I personally don't have, I can't say I don't have nothing against him. There's some things just about, you know, the fact that he's performing bad and still has a ride and stuff around that, that I can't really get behind. But like the kid himself, I don't have anything against. So I guess I hope he figures it out and at least doesn't waste a very competent ride that should go to somebody else. That's really what I hope for. But my last one is Josh Berry is a Final Four contender. Green, yellow, or red?
This one's tough. I thought about this when we sent it out, and I'm gonna have to go yellow again. I, if he continues what he's done the last 2 weeks, I think he can. I think he could be. Do I see it happening? I don't. I think the HMS drivers, the Joe Gibbs drivers, I think they'll figure it out. I
Mhm.
think we can pretty much pencil Bell in, Larson, Byron, and then one of the fourth spot is really the one that's open. I think you can pencil those three in. But I think Hamlin's going to figure it out. He's going to start having wins. So I don't really see who he would kick out. That's the
Mhm.
problem with
So
Barry
but
making the final four.
you could see him making the round of 8.
I think he could. I
Mhm.
think he can definitely make the round of eight. The tracks set up well for him. Short
Yeah.
tracks, he short tracks is where he's the best at. We got a couple of those in the playoffs, and I think I wouldn't be surprised if he rattled off a win there or was able to get enough points to carry him through.
Yeah. No, I honestly I am throwing the green flag on this, and this ties into my overreaction, which is that Josh Berry is going to win at least 3 races this year. I think I don't know why I didn't necessarily come up with this idea earlier, but like this is a guy who you mentioned short track beast. I mean, that's what he came up on. And it's easy to forget just how like he's obviously older. He's in his early to mid 30s, which is older on the spectrum of NASCAR, but he still has another 10 years left in him, maybe. But he's still newer to the Xfinity and Cup Series level of things. Like he pretty much came right up to Xfinity from running in some NASCAR weekly series. Came in, was on a part-time schedule, won 2 races. But this is a guy who can legitimately just compete for wins off of talent. Not even maybe just has a top 10 car, but can work that top 10 car into a top 5 and you never know what happens when you get up there. And like just listen off some of the tracks like Martinsville, Bristol, Richmond, Iowa, Dover, and Wood Brothers is a great super speedway team. So he could also he's a good super speedway driver. So Daytona, Talladega, and Atlanta are all ones. He won at Vegas twice in Xfinity career and has a win at Charlotte. So mile and a half might work into his as well. And as he grows as a driver, I think this could be a championship contender at some point.
It also doesn't hurt to have Dell Jr. as a mentor and in your back
Absolutely.
pocket. That definitely doesn't hurt anything as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. So do you think I'm overreacting a little too much, or do you
I,
see it?
I could see a chance where he wins 3 races, but making the final four, I think come that time, that's a completely different.
Mm,
That's a completely different atmosphere. With this being his first real year in contention, I'm
yeah,
not going to count his year last year at SHR. I
yeah,
think that was
understandably
just
so.
a dumpster fire. But thought that was going to be a good car for him, and then they shut down. Going to the Wood Brothers and Penske. I think a year or two, we might be having a different conversation. But I think this year, with it being the first real chance to do that in the Cup Series, I just don't see it happening this year.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's why I call it an overreaction. But what's your overreaction for this week? Well, you also kind of tied in that, but remind us.
Yeah, I struggle with one this week, but I don't see how Bell the penalty for pitting into the 19 box left his pit stall. They told him to find another pit box and was able to pit in the 19s. And the 19 crew was able to tighten up the lug nuts
Hmm.
or the lug
Yeah.
nut. So,
Yeah.
um, and the only penalty that he got was dropping to the rear for pitting outside of the box. I don't know if it's a 2 lap. I don't think it should be a 2 lap penalty. Lose your crew chief. It didn't come off. Um, but the penalty from listening to the teardown with Jeff Gluck, the penalty starts if you leave pit road. So no, he
Hmm.
did not leave pit road, but there should be a 1 lap penalty, something be held for 1 lap. But you shouldn't be able to have another team be able to tighten the lug nut on your car and then just have to drop to the tail end.
Yeah. No, I get that, and I agree with that. I think it should definitely there should be some implications on your overall season based off of that. And at some point you have to weigh it, because if you have that loose wheel and it falls off, you have 4 races with no crew chief. And does it need to be a penalty to that stature, or does it need to be a little less? And now they have to, but then you put them in that, well, let's take a lesser penalty by doing this, as opposed to the
I
death sentence, not death sentence, but how bad that other one is.
I don't think it should be the full 4 race, hold for 2 laps, but
Yeah.
there's got to be something because it is a safety issue. You don't want a tire flying around on the track, but
Hmm.
but you also shouldn't be able to have another team pit your car.
Yeah, I completely agree. Um, yeah, I'm curious if there is no action from NASCAR this week, if it is something that becomes more common, because that's been a big issue really to start the season. I mean, every race it seems like we've had a tire fall off, and I don't know. I'm curious to see how that all develops, but let's go ahead and get into our power rankings. I will start with mine, and I'll start from the top because I think that's probably the most. There's no real reveal at the top. My number one is Christopher Bell. He won 3 races in a row. He will likely be up here for at least another 3 races, even if he's just hanging around the top 10. My second is William Byron. He's definitely been the second most consistent driver with winning speed. He had winning speed today. Larson had some winning speed today as well, but he definitely was up there, and he ended up getting a top 5 again. So Byron's definitely there at number 2, but where I struggled was at number 3. So what I did is I had Reddick above Elliott last week. I'm going to keep Reddick above Elliott. So Tyler Reddick's at my number 3. Did not get the result, but like you said, was up there in the running for the win. And maybe if strategies all stay the same, maybe we're talking about Tyler Reddick win and he sneaks up the board. But for now, I'm going to hang him at number 3. And then I have Chase Elliott at number 9. At number 4. He is the number 9. But I have him at number 4. He's got 4. He's got 3 top 10s. Just another one. Today he had a top 10 car. That is for certain. But he had stuff that kept him out of the top 10. But he still found his way back into that 10th place. I'd like to see where Chase Elliott has finished the most, because second place is definitely first on that list. But then 10th place is probably second on that list. So he's very good at just finding that 10th place somehow. And then the last one I have is Kyle Larson. And it's kind of, I feel like Josh on this one, where it's like he had a race winning car this week. He had a potential race winning car last week, almost had the win. So he's kind of building up. I think he could end up breaking through for a win at just his best track of Homestead next week. So yeah, I think Kyle Larson is starting to build that momentum, and he might enter his name in the conversation with a couple wins here over the next couple weeks, possibly starting at Homestead. And I will give an honorable mention, though, to Alex Bowman, who has 4 top 10s on the season, one of 2 drivers in the field to have that. So a consistent start, but outside of today, I think today he probably had a top 5 car. I would have liked to see more laps of him up there, but still just being able to work his way back in the top 10 after having adversity really all 4 of those 4 top 10s. So there's my power rankings. Bull, what do you got?
So I kind of struggled this week as well. I think we both agree on 1, 2. Christopher Bell is number 1. William Byron is number 2, and 3, 4, and 5. I'm expecting some hate, but I had to drop somebody that I've had all year. Number 3 is Tyler Reddick. He had fast car all weekend. He's had
Mhm.
a fast car all year, really. But this week he got the 24th place finish and that was solely based on the strategy. They split that final run in half, and the caution fell at the wrong time. So I got him at number 3. At number 4, I got Kyle Larson. I know you
Okay.
had him at your number 5. I
Mhm.
got him at number 4. He had the fastest car all week or all weekend. He should have won the race. The strategy got him as well. And as you mentioned, we're getting ready to go into Homestead, um, where he is one of the best drivers. Him and Reddick, I can't wait to watch that. I expect them
Yeah.
to uh, be ripping the top, and that be a fantastic race. But number 5, I got Josh Berry. He won yesterday. Previous week, he finished 4th, 2 top 5s in the last 2 weeks, including a victory. So I just don't see how I could leave him off with the last 2 weeks. I think he's got it figured out, but I think I think he's looking great to start the year.
Yeah, I mean, I wrestled with Josh Berry as well, slotting into that 5 spot. I think the win and then a back-to-back top 5, which is more top 5s than what the Wood Brothers Racing has had in the last 3 years. So, yeah, honestly, looking back, I could have easily put the 21 in there, and I'll be curious. I think if he's able to get another top 10, I might have him up there next week.
One
It depends
one
on
thing I will mention, neither one of us had Ryan Blaney in our top
yeah.
5.
Mhm.
Uh, he's got one top 5 on the year, and his last 3 finishes or 19th, 28th, and 35th.
Yeah.
Um, I think he'll turn it around. Some of it has been bad luck, caught up wrong place, wrong time, but he's got to start racking up those top 10 finishes.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I think there's been some bad juju around that 12 team the last couple of weeks. Didn't expect a good finish at Coda, so I wasn't really worried about that. Phoenix, not his fault. His engine expired. And again, today was not, or yesterday was not really his fault either. But I feel like there comes a point where there's just something going on with this team. There's something. They're not top 5 anymore. They're not top 5 at this point. Easily just rattle off a couple top 10s and top 5s, and I think you're right back up there. I think he probably would have finished top 5 and still be on my list if everything went his way, but it didn't. So until things start going his way again, yeah, I think it's fair to keep him off the top 5 for now. I think he's down to 7th in points. So despite those 3 rough finishes, he's got the stage points to at least hang around, which is kind of the same thing with his teammate Joey Logano. Fast cars, running up front, getting stage points, but just not the finishes to go along with it yet. So we'll see if that starts rattling off. But I think that's really all we got. A little quicker episode, I guess. We don't have the third guy, talking and whatnot. So is there anything else though, that you want to bring up before we leave? And who's your winner for Homestead this week?
So, do you remember, Colton, what happened 2010 at Bristol?
2010 at Bristol. What, the fall or spring?
Uh, the spring.
Okay. Is when you tell me, I'll remember. However,
So,
it's
so
not
Kyle
coming to
Busch
mind.
won that race.
Ah,
He
yes.
also won, he also won the Xfinity race the night before, and he won
Yes,
the
I
truck
do.
race. He won the truck race the night before that. He swept the weekend. Kyle Larson is going to sweep the weekend. He's going to win the truck, Xfinity, and the Cup race this weekend. Racing all 3. I think he gets it done for the first time since 2010.
Yeah, I like that. I kind of alluded to it earlier. I think this. I forgot he was doing all 3. That's right. Okay. See, it's funny. When you said that Bristol, my mind went to Brad Keselowski's driver intro. But that was probably what, 2011, I guess. I get my years mixed up sometimes back then. But yeah, that sweep. I remember that sweep. I remember watching at least the Xfinity and Cup race. So if there's anybody that's going to do it, it's going to be Kyle Larson at Homestead. I mean, come on now. And one thing is for certain, though, he will have a lot of fun this weekend because he loves that track, and I love that track. So
I love it. The championship race should be there. This sucks that we're going here in March, and we're not going for the playoffs. That needs to be back in the playoffs, championship race.
Yeah, I've heard that it's supposedly. I know at the very least it should go back to the playoffs next year, but they're making renovations to the track, whether it be the facilities. I don't think there's much going on. There may be like a little repave of the track, but I don't think it's going to be like anything drastic. But I know they're basically like reconfiguring trying to make the facilities better, which leads me to think that maybe it's coming back as the championship race, but at the very least, just have it in the playoffs.
And I think I think that's why they moved it up this year. And then it'll be back next year to give them that extra time to do those renovations.
Yes.
But I love Homestead. It puts on a great race, and I actually cannot wait for this weekend.
Yeah, you and me both. I'm going to be watching a lot of college basketball, but I'll definitely take a break, about a 3.5 hour break to watch some NASCAR. As long as Purdue isn't on, of course. But that's all I got for now. We'll be back on Friday. Me, Ben, and Josh giving our Fast Five picks, talking about what went wrong last week with pretty much all of ours, because Ben got the most, of course. Imagine that, but he didn't have the greatest of weeks either. So at least me and Josh are still within striking distance. So, Bull, do you have any message you would like for me to relay to Josh though on Friday? Since he's scared, he hit away this week.
We'll just let Josh. As you can see by his picks, there's a reason why he's in third.
Absolutely, I'll let him know. So be sure to follow.
His intro with picking the picking the two Bush guys.
Yeah,
that was pretty good. I'm not gonna lie.
Did you like that? It's funny because I thought he was picking Ross because he picked up the Bush can, and then he goes Kyle Busch. I'm like, okay, whatever, and then he goes Ross. So that he definitely planned that one out, because before we had this argument of he had the first pick. And so I was like, I'm gonna get the third. I had the second pick, so I was like, I'll take the third pick. So I get the second pick on which order. And he's like, no, I want the third pick. And I was like, I can't say no, but I really wanted the third pick. But
he should have spent more time looking into his picks instead of thinking of an intro for it.
No doubt. But that was quite the episode of this episode, we call it, of the Slide Job podcast, just like this one. So we'll see y'all in the next one, though. Be sure to follow Bull on Twitter at Bull_81818 or
81818.
That's probably the easiest way to say it, huh? Well, also follow me on Twitter at LFC__99, and we will see you all in the next one. Peace.